The story begins with a family happily living their lives, but little did they know that just a few minutes later, something terrifying was about to happen. While the couple was engrossed in their conversation, they suddenly heard screams and shouts from outside. When they both left the house, they saw a commotion. People were fleeing their homes, as if something terrible was about to happen. Jason and Beth noticed that their neighbors were also evacuating their homes in panic. Jason asked the neighbor, "What's the reason? Why are you leaving?" But they were in such a hurry that they didn't respond. They also noticed the neighbor's son packing his belongings. When Jason asked the child, "Where are you going?" the child replied, "My father has a friend who is a government official." He said that a very dangerous virus had spread that could turn a normal human into a monster. But then the child's mother arrived, grabbed him, and began to take him away. Jason asked her what virus the child was talking about. The child's mother replied, "I'm not sure." He said, "Now is not the time to tell them. Take your wife and daughter and get as far away from this town as possible." Hearing this, Jason and Beth became extremely alarmed. Without thinking, Jason loaded his family into the car and began driving out of town. But on the way, they noticed that the neighbors who had fled were returning. This made them even more anxious. Further, they got stuck in traffic. When Jason and his family got out of the car, they saw that the only exit route out of town had been blocked by the police. Helicopters hovered overhead. People were being told that a poisonous virus had spread in the city and they should return home quickly. Hearing this, Jason felt a little strange. When the virus had spread in the city, why were people being told to stay inside instead of being evacuated? Suddenly, a large boulder from a nearby mountain fell on their car. This terrified them, and the mountain began to shake. Just then, 2 military fighter jets emerged from behind the mountain and headed toward the city. They began raining bombs down on the entire city, reducing it to ashes. Jason's wife, Beth, immediately realized that if they had listened to the police and returned home, they would have been devastated. Their fate was about to be dire. Then, the fighter jets began moving toward the people on the street. This sent everyone into a panic. Everyone realized the government wanted to kill them. Everyone ran for cover. But Jason and Beth realized that no matter where they ran, the fighter jets would still hit them. Just then, Beth looked back and saw a school on the mountain and thought that would be a good place to escape. Jason, Beth, and Joey began climbing the mountain toward the school. Behind them, the fighter jets began dropping bombs on the people on the bridge. The three of them ran quickly to the school, and luckily they found a tunnel and quickly entered it just seconds before the bombs exploded. As soon as the bunker door closed, a massive explosion erupted above. Luckily, they were beneath the bunker and survived. But what puzzled them was what kind of virus it was that forced the government to kill everyone in the city. They couldn't understand anything. They simply knew that if they wanted to survive, they had to live quietly in the bunker. But their problem was how long they would be able to live here and what food and water would they need to feed themselves. They had to do it. Fortunately, there was plenty of expired food stored there, enough for 3 people. Jason's wife, Beth, was extremely worried. She wondered about their daughter, Zoe, wondering what they would do if she got sick. Beth had also hurt her hand while closing the door, leaving a deep cut. They were both worried that the virulent virus might have attacked their bodies as well. But now wasn't the time to think about that. They had to secure the bunker so that no one could open the door to the bunker above. Jason locked the bunker door tightly with an iron chain and decided to live their lives in hiding. But life underground wasn't easy. They ate the same food every day, only muddy water to drink, and played cards in their free time. They were completely cut off from the outside world. After living here for so many days, they were becoming increasingly cramped. But what could they do? If they had gone upstairs, they would not have survived. This life made Jason's family feel like the end of the world. Joey asked his father, "Dad, how long will we be here?" Jason had no answer. He simply told his daughter, "We'll only go outside when the virus is gone." He puts his fingers over his daughter's eyes, making her imagine the world outside. Days passed like this, and then months. They didn't realize that they had already spent more than 300 days in this bunker, waiting to be released. Zoe looked out at the world through a periscope her mother had made. All around, it was devastation. It was as if the entire world had burned to ashes. There was not a trace of a single human being. Seeing all this, the little girl began to think, Maybe they were the last survivors. Her mother consoled her. Don't think like that. Maybe your friends are hiding somewhere like us. It was night, and dinner time was near. They had little food left. So the three of them were making do with a small portion. But today, at Zoe's insistence, she was given a whole can of tin. When Zoe opened the tin, she saw that it was empty inside. There was a small hole in the back of this box. Perhaps something had stolen food from it. Beth checked all the remaining boxes and found that all 12 were empty. This upset her, as this was their 2 weeks' worth of food. Beth looked at the ventilation grill. He looked and guessed that a rat had sneaked in and taken the food. Beth said, "If it was a rat, we had to kill it quickly. Otherwise, it would ruin all our food." Seeing his daughter's sad face, Jason consoled her, saying, "Don't worry about small things. Even if the food ran out, I'd go upstairs and get some things." The next day, Zoe was playing with her mother on the blocks when a faint noise came from behind. When Zoe looked back, she saw that a rat had entered again to steal the tin foot. Before the rat could escape, Zoe immediately called her parents. They had to kill this rat at all costs. Jason, enraged, took out a knife and moved forward to cut it into pieces. But the little rat was very nimble. It dodged Jason's blow and ran away, even knocking the lantern on the table. Just as it was about to burrow, Beth suddenly pounced and killed it. They were all celebrating the killing of the rat, when a lantern fell on the other side, causing a fire to slowly grow. Jason ran to extinguish the lantern, but the lantern was so hot that Jason burned his hand, and the glass of the lantern broke, setting the entire table ablaze. Beth tore the curtain and tried to extinguish the fire. Jason took half a bucket of water from the tap and doused it. They poured it on the fire. Somehow they extinguished it, but the danger wasn't over yet. They were about to face even more difficulties. The smoke had filled the entire bunker, slowly rising through the ventilation grills. This alarmed them all, as it revealed their location. Everyone held their breath. Jason suggested that perhaps the darkness of night would conceal the smoke, preventing anyone from discovering their whereabouts. The three of them stayed awake the entire night, gripped by fear. The next morning, they peered out the periscope to reassure themselves, and the ground beneath their feet sank. They saw a thick cloud of smoke outside. This made their anxiety grow. They were convinced that their whereabouts had been exposed. Then Beat said that if there was smoke, there must have been ashes nearby, which, if examined, could reveal their whereabouts. So now we have to clean up the ashes. The couple decided to go outside and clean up. Before leaving, Jason told his daughter, Zoe, "Promise me that no matter what noises you hear outside or anything else, you won't go outside." They had to leave. After extracting a promise from their daughter, they unlocked the door. They listened carefully for sounds outside, and when they were sure no one was there, they opened the bunker door together and exited. Their daughter was now alone inside, waiting for her parents. But when they didn't return after a long wait, she climbed onto a stool and began observing the situation outside through binoculars. Soon, she saw her parents trying to hide behind the bunker door. But then, Jo saw something that took her breath away. She saw a dark shadow rapidly approaching them in the distance. The girl screamed, begging her father to look back, but the distance was too great. Her parents couldn't hear. In a panic, the girl forgot her fear and climbed the ladder and climbed out of the bunker. As soon as she emerged, she realized her parents were no longer there. In her desperation, the girl began calling for them in a frantic voice. Then suddenly, someone grabbed his mouth from behind. It was none other than his mother. A few seconds later, a herd of wild deer passed by quickly. Although the three of them escaped unhurt, the fear of the deer grew stronger. These deer running like this must have been a sign of something dangerous. It was an attempt to escape. Everyone, sensing danger, quickly ran back to the bunker and huddled inside. Jason closed the bunker door with wooden planks and secured it tightly with an iron chain, ordering everyone to remain absolutely silent. Just then, they heard faint footsteps from above. It sounded as if someone was approaching the bunker door. He had been pacing around the bunker for several minutes. The three slowly moved away from the bunker door and moved forward, and perhaps whoever was up there hadn't noticed there was someone in the bunker below. Terrified, Jo began to cry. Beat calmed her down, telling her that if the sound reached outside, everything would be over. The three of them slowly moved far enough away from the bunker door. They were moving so that even if someone opened the door from above, they wouldn't be seen below. But then, the rope of the doll Joe was carrying got caught in a screw. The screw slowly began to loosen. This stunned Jason and Beat as the string was connected to the doll's sound switch. Before they could do anything, the screw jerked open and a sudden burst of noise erupted from within the doll. Jason immediately ripped the doll apart and broke the speaker inside, but it was too late. The thing that was stalking them had already caught wind of them. Suddenly, a loud crash came from above, followed by the echo of heavy footsteps that stopped directly above the bunker door. He finally found their location and tried to open it. He was pushing hard on the bunker lid, and despite the chains holding it shut, he could clearly sense danger, and the monster above knew that someone was definitely there below. Although the door was locked with strong chains, the chains began to break one by one under the thing's terrifying force. Seeing this, Jason knew the door wouldn't hold for much longer. So he quickly ran inside and began pulling out the water pump pipe. Beth, too, mustered courage, climbed a ladder, using her body weight to pull the chain, keeping the door closed. But even then, the iron lid slowly began to open. Just then, a dark shadow appeared above the door, its eyes glowing like bulbs, as if death were watching them from above. Without thinking, Jason attacked the thing with a pipe, knocking it back. Jason quickly jammed the pipe into the door, closing it, and the thing fled. But Jason's body was still trembling violently. He could never have imagined that the world outside was teeming with not only ruthless soldiers, but also dangerous monsters. The entire family sat dejectedly near the stairs, their hideout now exposed. They could be attacked at any moment, and they knew that this time only one had come. But the next time they would come, they would be much more numerous, and they would be unable to do anything against them. After a while, the cupboard suddenly began to shake. Jason and Beth knew that he had summoned the rest of his companions. Heavy footsteps could be heard from upstairs, as if thousands of creatures were running overhead. Then they all gathered at the bunker door. Downstairs, Jason, Beth, and Joey trembled with fear. Then suddenly, they launched a massive attack, this time with even greater force than before. The sturdy iron door shattered, and a multitude of eyes glowed from the bunker's door, sending everyone running backward in fear. But the monsters were also following them. Beth threw her oil lamp and set fire to the curtain between them and herself, and grabbing the wardrobe, they blocked the way. They all began running rapidly towards the inside of the bunker. But they knew that all this wouldn't hold them back for long. They had no way to escape. Just then, the girl spotted a vent leading to the ground. Jason broke it with all his might and pushed his wife and daughter out. But when he tried to get out himself, he was stuck due to the tight space. The monsters were advancing on him. Now, Jason had to escape somehow. He saw no other way out, so he broke his shoulder, causing him to scream in pain. But quickly he composed himself and entered the vent. Beth wasted no time and began pulling Jason out with all her might. Just as Jason was about to escape, a massive creature appeared and grabbed Jason's leg. Jason realized that his escape was now impossible. There was no hope of escape. Looking his wife in the eye, Jason said, "Whatever happens, don't let anything happen to Joey." The next moment, the monster dragged him back into the bunker. But instead of fearing the monster in the bunker, Jason tells them to come and see how strong they are. Beth and Joey look down and hear loud screams coming from the bunker. Beth realizes her husband is fighting to give them time to escape. Even in pain, he holds their daughter. They escaped, escaping the monster and making their way a long way. But as they ran, they noticed something strange. They noticed that the highway that once opened to the outside world was now covered by a high wall. This meant no one could leave the city. Just then, a helicopter flew in the distance. When Beth looked back, it was an army helicopter. The helicopter quickly approached them and shone its bright spotlight on them. Just as they were about to escape, a large net fell on them from above, trapping them. They tried every possible way to free themselves from the net, but the net had trapped them tightly. Beth saw through the net's mesh that some dark figures with green eyes were approaching them. That's when we learned the true secret of the story. These yellow-eyed men holding guns, whom we thought were monsters, weren't aliens or virus-infected people. Instead, they were military soldiers wearing gas masks and night vision goggles. Those same eyes, whose yellow glow seemed to make them appear to be from another world. But the question arises, why did the army become these people's mortal enemies? You'll learn all this in the remaining little story. Now, Beth and both Joe and Joe were under the control of these soldiers. One of them took out a large injection and injected them into their necks, one by one. When their blood was tested, it was discovered that both of them were infected with a deadly virus, meaning they were a threat to the planet. They were now to be killed. In fact, when the virus first broke out, many people in this small town were already infected. The virus spread through the air and spread rapidly from person to person. Those infected didn't even know they were sick, and the government had no antidote to stop it. The government had no other option but to kill those infected. Beth cried, "Please let my child go." When Beth realized that these soldiers wouldn't even spare her little daughter, she was completely enraged. Black marks appeared on her face. But before she could do anything, she was completely devastated. A fountain of blood spurted from a soldier's neck. It was none other than Jason, who had returned from the dead. In reality, Jason didn't die in the bunker. Instead, he lost control and killed all the soldiers there. He was extremely angry at the time. His face was black with marks on it. His eyes were red with anger. His strength had increased exponentially, and it was clear that he was no longer the same Jason as before, but instead appeared in a different form. He pounced on the soldiers, killing them. However, he couldn't stop the hot weapons and fell to the ground. When the soldiers moved towards Beth and Joe, they had already broken through the trap and fled. The soldiers searched for them, but they didn't realize that Beth had also transformed into a demon. She hid Joe inside a car and fought the soldiers herself. She killed several soldiers before falling to the roof of the car after being shot herself. Her daughter, hidden in the darkness, witnessed all this. Seeing her parents' condition, she also lost her temper in a rage. In one leap, she knocked down a soldier, breaking his mask, and was about to kill him when Beth stopped her just in time. She didn't want her daughter to become a monster. Beth calmed her down. Gradually, the green in the girl's veins disappeared and she transformed back into a human. But the soldier wasn't so lucky. His safety mask had been broken, and he slowly became infected with the virus. Meanwhile, Jason's condition was very serious. Looking at his daughter's face, he placed 2 fingers on her eyes. Fairy and Jason closed their eyes forever. Just then, another helicopter arrived. Beth ran with her daughter. Passing through piles of junk, they entered a tunnel. Suddenly, a light caught their eyes. They discovered that the boy in front was the same little boy from the neighborhood we saw at the beginning of the story. The boy led them to a cave-like tunnel where the boy's parents and several other people were hiding. In reality, there were people infected with the virus, just like them. To survive, they were all forced to live like rats in the dark. The virus was dangerous, but not fatal. It would exert its greatest stress on an infected person's body when they were frightened or unable to control their anger. But in reality, these people had learned to control themselves. They considered the city's soldiers to be demons, but in reality, they themselves were demons. With this, the story ends.